Hello and welcome to the first and likely last episode of I'm Right and You're Wrong. I'm Ben,
I'm Nathaniel.
and today we're going to be talking about whether or not you should pay for DLC in video games. So Nathaniel, what do you think?
I believe at some extent it would be good to pay for video games. Extra DLCs in video games. For example, if you know you like this game, you've been playing it for months now, and a big DLC comes out, and you're most likely be playing it for another few months after that, then I would go for it and buy the game, buy the DLCs.
Interesting point. I think that you should not pay for DLC in video games because once you've already paid for a game, that's yours, and I don't see a reason to pay for stuff after that. Like, for example, in games like Skyrim, it's an amazing game, and they made a bunch of expansions to it where you had to pay for all these like extra things. I think that they should just save that and work on the next full installment of the franchise instead of waiting another 2 or 3 years to start that before it gets released. Because a big problem is having to wait for the next full installments to get released while you're just getting these tiny bits of DLC.
Well, if you think about it, it's a better way for them to make money. First of all, and games like Just Cause 3, they have a lot of like DLCs in the game. So obviously, Just Cause 2 came out around 4 years ago, and Just Cause 3 came out like last year.
Great game, by the way.
So like instead of waiting like 4 more years for another great game like that to come out, they just have more DLCs. And
A big majority of the DLC was just content created by the fan base. It wasn't actually created by the company. So a lot of the company's own work was not put into that. Also, I don't believe that the main goal of a video game should be to make money. I think it should be to put out good installments for the players so that they can grow their fan base and make more money in the future. Now let's talk about free-to-play coming out very soon, which I'm incredibly excited for. Is called Overwatch. It's made by Blizzard, the same people who make World of Warcraft and Hearthstone. It's a first-person shooter, and the open beta was recently. It's amazing. Like, it's probably one of my favorite games ever. And they've promised that all future DLC, including like new skins, new costumes, new characters, it will all be free. And I think that's a very smart move for a one-time price to get people into the game and then continuously giving them free content to bring more people into the game over time is a really smart business decision and a design decision. And I think that will help them ultimately in the future.
what won't help them in the future is their amount of money that they're going to have for their next design build. Because let's say, how many people would you think would buy this game?
It had the biggest open beta of any game ever, so I would say a good amount of people will be playing it.
All right, so that good amount of people, how many of those people would have tend to put money into the game?
I mean, if they're anything like me, none.
Okay, but let's say they're not like you, and they would be like me, that if I really enjoy a game, I would tend to spend, I don't know, let's say $80.
Well, it's actually mirrors another Overwatch mirrors a game called TF2, which is a free game that has a massive online trading market in terms of like cosmetics, and some of them have gone for tens of thousands of dollars, and that the economy right now in that game is pretty big. So I would guess if they were to implement the same kind of marketing tactic as TF2 and in World of Warcraft, which is one of their other games, they could potentially get tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of just microtransactions from a small group of people. But I think that was actually one thing that led to the downfall of TF2, how it started focusing more on the economy and microtransactions and less on actual gameplay, which seems to be what Overwatch is focusing on.
All right, so games that come out every yearly, what are they called? Yearly installments?
Annual installments, yeah.
Are pretty much games that, every year, the new game is coming out next year at the same time. So
yeah, these are games like the sports games and games like Call of Duty and sometimes even Assassin's Creed, although I think right now they're actually taking a break from the yearly installments.
I think they are. So one game in particular is like NFL and the NBA. NBA 2K is like a big franchise that has like loads of money just from people playing like one game. So this year NBA 2K16 was out, and so many people put mad money into it. Although they already know that 2K17 is coming out literally in November. So, like, what's the point? Yeah, then your actions doesn't save into the next game. You just wasted all that money on that other game that nobody's going to be playing when the new game comes out.
I personally really don't like these yearly installments. I think that in games like Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed, and especially in the sports games, they don't really change from year to year. They just have a shinier coat of paint and a little updated gameplay. But I think that they should just not do that, put out one quality game, wait a couple years, and then put out a completely different type of game. Or in this case, I can understand just putting in free updates of like reskins and balancing issues to make the game look more modern. But I really don't think it's a good thing for the gaming industry if these games keep coming out year to year and they're basically the same thing.
Yeah, I also agree, but just the amount of money they're getting. If you buy it 2 years in a row, they get $120. That's not including the amount of money you're going to put into the game afterwards, just from you.
Well, these sports games are made by EA, which won Worst Company in America for several years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think the gaming industry should be taking many lessons from EA in terms of how they make and market their games.
And then the game that you just mentioned, the Call of Duty franchise as well. Like, all of their games, they had DLCs, no matter which one. For example, like, literally one of the first ones, World at War, you had to buy zombie maps, which are like $20. So that's like free money for them back in like 2007 or 9.
Here's another topic that is interesting. Some games like Hearthstone, or even more recently, Rainbow Six Siege, they have paid DLC, but it's not impossible to get that without paying. Like, we're not advocating for pirating this DLC, but in games like Rainbow Six or Hearthstone, you can pay for all of this DLC, or you can just grind in the game for in-game currency to buy it for yourself. But I think, while that's not ideal, I think it should just be given to you. I think it's definitely a preferable option to being locked out unless you put in a credit card.
That's true. Like in NBA 2K, it's the same thing about grinding. There's a game mode called Domination that you need to beat you need to beat 70 teams, and you get a really beast player. But if you even see somebody that has $20, they can get the same player without grinding for weeks and weeks getting this player. So, it's kind of unfair. Like, if you have a credit card and you choose to use it, that's like, okay, cool, you used it, but then you're sitting next to someone that's been playing for like months now and just got the player.
Yeah, and this is actually even worse in games like Rainbow Six, where it's not just like cosmetic upgrades. These upgrades actually affect gameplay. Like, you can get new characters that affect gameplay in massive ways. Like in Rainbow Six, I've been wanting to get this character for a long time because it's incredibly powerful, but I've just been having to grind. These new characters cost 25,000 coins each. Other characters only cost like 500 or 700. It's incredibly unfair how it is basically a pay-to-win system, where if you put in the money, you get the more powerful characters, and if you don't, you can still get them. You just have to grind for a lot of time to get this currency while facing those other characters that people have bought with their own money, making it harder for you to actually get the currency.
That's kind of true, because there used to be a game that I used to play for maybe like a month or so. It's called Neverwinter. You probably never heard of it. It was like a...
You're correct. I've never heard of it.
Stale. Anyways, so it was a game that was pretty much like one of those like Dota 2 World at Warcraft things.
Yeah, a MOBA.
Yeah, like the MMO stuff. So what it was pretty much like that, and it was a free-to-play. And obviously, every free-to-play has DLCs, but this one had,
not the good ones.
Nah. So this one, you were able to for example, you can buy you start off with a horse. Like, if you grind enough coins, you can get a horse, like, to ride, obviously. And then later, if you choose to spend money in the game, you can actually buy, like, a tiger that would actually help you in battles. And, like, obviously, it's, like, going to be overpowered if you put, like, $20 into the game. I'm going to give you a tiger. And, like, And then you can also spend like, real-life money on, like, sidekicks that will be on your side. And you get one free sidekick, but, like, also you still need to grind it out. But obviously, it's not as powerful as, like, the other ones, like the magics and the mage guys that you can get if you spend money in the game.
Another problem that kind of touches on is the fact that some games are actually incredibly shallow if you don't pay for the DLC. Yeah. A game like Skyrim, it's such a vast, expansive world, and, like, there's so much stuff to do that it's still my favorite game of all time. I don't mind if I'm not getting the DLC because the world is so massive and expansive already. But some other games, there just isn't enough stuff there. Like in Destiny, for example, it was a good core game. It was okay, but it was one of the biggest complaints was that it was lacking story and all these different gameplay elements that they just eventually trickled along with DLC to fill in those voids.
Destiny was a very repetitive game. You beat one level, then you go on to the different planet. Then you just repeat the process. Go, like, travel over here, kill all these guys, congrats, here's a free weapon for you. Stuff like that.
I didn't even finish the game because I thought to myself, I've seen these online reviews, I know it's not going to be worth it, I know I'm not getting any DLC, so what's the point of me doing this if it's just going to be an incredibly shallow game with no, like, real ending?
Yeah, actually, yesterday, I actually hopped back on, and there's so many more DLCs that you need to pay for. There's over $120 worth of DLCs that I spotted in the first screen that, like, I had to, like, buy in order to have fun. For example, I got a piece of armor from, like, a chest in the game yesterday when I hopped on, and I needed to have the DLC, but I'm not going to buy the DLC. So it's just sitting in my inventory and doesn't even let me put it on because I need to have that DLC. So there's really no point for it.
Let's talk for a moment about standalone DLC games, like for example, Saints Row, Get Out of Hell, and other games where arguably, like, the Pokemon third installments, like Emerald and Soul and Crystal, where they are technically just expansions on the other game, but they stand alone. They're their own disc. They're their own things, and you can play them separately. It's just a reduced price, short game without having to actually download anything. I think that's a pretty smart way to introduce DLC. It's its own standalone game. You don't need the other thing, but you get that updated gameplay. It doesn't cost the same as a next installment. I don't think that's ideal, but again, I think that is a smart way to charge people for DLC, but make it its own independent thing, where if the old game gets stale, you can just play this new thing.
Yeah, I completely agree on that.
Alright, well, thank you for joining us for this episode of I'm Right and You're Wrong. We hope to see you again, but we probably won't.
Yeah.